J.K. Rowling has completely lost the plot. I don't understand why she's doing this. Why has she gone full SJW? She wrote to Pierce, "If you'd only read the Harry Potter series, you'd know the downside of sucking up to the biggest bully in school is getting burned alive." J.K. Rowling is doing exactly the thing that she is accusing Pierce Morgan of being. She is the bully. Calling someone names without any evidence is bullying. She is verbally abusing Pierce. She writes, "The fact-free, amoral, bigotry apologism of celebrity toady Pierce Morgan is, of course, why it's so delicious to see him told to fuck off." What right does she think she has abusing someone like this publicly? She's proud to write this, but she should be embarrassed. Well, Joe was right. Sucking up to the biggest progressive bullies will only get you burned. I can't wait until the SJWs turn on her. Her virtue signaling to these leftist barbarians is gonna blow up in her face, like those Black Lives Matter beasts are turning on fairy King Cuck Justin Trudeau. Are you a subhuman primate, Joe? Are you a monkey, merely capable of flinging feces, flinging verbal abuse? Or are you a developed, civilized human being, capable of sitting at the discussion table and presenting points, evidence, reason, using speech like grown-ups? She's a writer. She knows how to present an argument. Pierce was warning against the hysteria and name-calling, and that's exactly what Joe Rowling is doing. Way to prove his point. Pierce is right when he says that there is nothing he said that was not factual, and telling him to fuck off will not change that. What is true will always be true, no matter how much you descend deeper and deeper into your delusion, Joanne Rowling. He's right about her superior dismissive arrogance. Donald Trump's win and Brexit was the working class finally standing up for themselves against these champagne socialists like Joe Rowling and the Democratic and Labour Party, claiming to stand up for them while, as always, their left-wing economic policies constantly screw over those poor plebs, peasants, in the lower or middle class. She writes, "Would you like a couple of hours to mock up some pictures of refugees carrying explosives to substantiate your position?" Oh my gosh, she is really an idiot. She's a close-minded buffoon. These people are not refugees. The United Nations says that when someone is in the nearest country and they're safe there, they're no longer refugees. These people should stop at Lebanon or Turkey. There is no reason any Muslim should ever pass the Mediterranean Sea through to Greece. Christians maybe, because there is no guarantee that they will be safe in a nearby Muslim country. Islam is a genocidal religion. It requires murder. To be a good Muslim is to be a good infidel killer. That's why if a Muslim takes their faith seriously, they will be extremely dangerous. It does not matter if these Muslims, ordinary people, citizens of Syria, are fleeing from ISIS. They can still be a danger to you because they are Muslim. Even if they have not actually murdered a gay man or a trans or a Christian or a Jew, the handful that are left, that is not the only thing that matters when talking about letting them into your country. You've got to know what they believe. You've got to know about their IQ. You've got to know about their quality of character. And, most importantly, you have to preserve your national integrity in Britain. Maybe if Britain hadn't been taking in, like 350,000 immigrants a year, they can afford to take in refugees. I don't even think they should necessarily take in every single Christian refugee in the Middle East. I don't think that's the right thing either, because it's still going to be an overwhelming wave. And I don't even think they should necessarily go to America. But I do think something's got to be done for Christians. But see, when you keep immigration extremely low, like to Japanese level low, you can afford to take in lots of people in emergency situations. But now, because immigration is already overwhelming the country, you've got a little bit of a concern when it comes to refugees as well. If you hadn't been letting in all these immigrants, straining your resources, then you can actually have a discussion about taking refugees in emergency, unforeseen situations. Because either way, you're letting foreigners into your country, and you've got to know if they're going to be okay for you. Now, J.K. Rowling wrote the most Christian children's series since C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia. So tell me, how much money has she given to organizations helping Christians in the Middle East? How many millions of dollars, which would be pennies for her, has she given to buy off Yazidi sex slaves to free them, those women and girls? She cares so much to put strong, independent, thinking for herself female characters in Harry Potter. Okay, that's great. So apparently you care about women. Do you care about these women being kept as sex slaves? Huh? Oh, I get it. Okay. Muslims are the perpetrators. Oh, it does not compute in my head. Muslims doing something wrong. Muslims doing something wrong. Nope, Muslims do nothing wrong. And let's go back to us being racist. Why do you let these women be tortured? She lives in a Scottish castle, a piece of British history. She already has her children, so she doesn't have to worry about the government stealing money from normal native white white Brits who could be having more children instead is going to the third worlders to replace them. So she got to grow up in Britain while it was still British, but she doesn't want that for her nation's children. Does she want her nation's children to be the only white person in the elementary school? She won't have to deal with the violence, crime, and delinquency that comes with low IQ people. Her daughter will never have to live in a culturally enriched neighborhood. She'll never have to worry about being on college campuses in a dangerous area. J.K. Rowling's home will never be invaded by the third world family buying the house next door, and she has absolutely no say in the matter as a neighbor. She doesn't know what it's like for her left-wing government to hate you, want you to suffer, and want to replace you and your unborn children just for votes. And she will never have to see her street turned into a black, brown, or yellow colony. She is just a privileged aristocrat who wants one standard for herself and one standard for us, lower, lesser plebs. Okay, good. So now that I know, she's just a giant, selfish hypocrite. And it's interesting that there is not one aspect of social degeneracy in the Harry Potter series. There are no openly gay characters, except Rowling admitted that Dumbledore was gay, and he was infatuated with Grindelwald at the end of the series. Maybe they'd had a relationship, I don't know. There are no single mothers either. Harry and Ron's parents got married young, right out of Hogwarts, and Harry is born when his parents are 20 or 21. Ron's parents have a whole bunch of children. Harry's parents could have had more. The only single parents are widows or widowers, like Luna and her father. Fathers are incredibly important throughout this series. Harry thinks of his father all the time with pride. He gives him hope and strength in surviving the graveyard. His parents feel like characters in the series, even though they're dead. They should really just be memories, just gone. But we are learning more and more about them as he grows older and meets Remus and Sirius, his father's old friends. And in Harry Potter, there's no drug use. There's nothing that could symbolize drugs in the magic world. There's no dropping out of school, no blowing off classes. Hermione's a total keener. Yeah, Harry and Ron are not the best students, but they do try. See, the liberals love her series because it's about liberalism. It's about equality. It's about anti-racism, anti-stereotypes, and individualism. Again, that's fine. That's her prerogative. It's not a problem. But J.K. Rowling shows her arrogance in that she does not even wish to understand her opponent's position. In her series, the purebloods just hate Muggleborns. There's no reason for this hatred. It's presented as this paranoid, random delusion. Bellatrix is just deranged. Because in her series, there's no difference in strength of character, virtue, or magical ability based on blood status. And it seems magical ability is binary. You either are born magical or not. The amount of magical blood in your family, like one magical parent, one muggle parent, has no bearing on your skills or virtue. There's no reason for anyone really in this world to hate Muggleborns. It's this obsession with filthy blood. It's a madness. It's some kind of delusion that Dolores thinks Muggleborns stole magic. There's no evidence for that. So this is what Rowling uses to represent racism. Something random, with no reason, like a mental illness. Like these racists are just disconnected from reality. There's no reason to hate Muggleborns, and there's no reason for white people to hate or dislike non-white people. Here she displays her arrogance. She does not wish to understand her opponent's position. Even if she doesn't agree, she has to understand the position in order to disagree with it. Even if you find people so detestable, so gross and awful, you've got to try and understand them. You've got to have empathy for their position. Otherwise, how are you supposed to argue? See, no one is born racist. Even if your parents teach you racism, you'll probably change your mind based on your own experiences as you grow older. Racism in reality is developed due to experiences with other races. And even if you have just one negative experience, you want to rationalize it to yourself. It's just one person that had a bad day, he had a bad upbringing. Don't judge individuals by the collective. But then you have more and more negative experiences, and it becomes harder and harder to deny, minimize, or rationalize away the negative and often extremely destructive or criminal behavior of other races. Then you become a racist, against your own better judgment, often against your will like that. No one wants to take that red pill. No one wants to have sympathies with the alt-right, let alone join it. Since everyone goes through public school, everyone starts a default far leftist position, because that's just the education you get. And you don't want to leave the left. You don't want to disagree with your teachers who gave you your political opinions. That's why the government wants to raise the kids. That's why they keep using in these speeches our children, the state's children. Everyone wants to believe that everyone is the same. That's what liberalism is. That's why disaffected leftists call themselves classical liberals, or make up a word, civic nationalist, which is just basically being a patriotic citizen, because they don't want to take off the rose-colored glasses of equality. They say it's about culture, not race or ethnicity. Never mind the fact that culture comes out of race and ethnicity. How come the Spanish culture is different than the British culture? How come the Japanese is different than the Sri Lankan? Culture comes from a people, and nations are made up of people. Liberals, because they are on the left, they still want to feel good about themselves. They want to appear like they're good people, because they think it matters. White liberals think non-whites will thank them for their anti-racism and loyalty. I'm sure Justin Trudeau didn't expect Black Lives Matter to turn on him. No good deed goes unpunished. Racism doesn't come out of a vacuum. It comes out reluctantly. And for J.K. Rowling to represent this issue in such a simple and blind way really does a disservice to this complex social ill, racism. You know J.K. Rowling is a progressive in that she puts non-whites whites in her series. She makes a Chinese girl the first person Harry has a crush on, and of course she has to make her very pretty. And why can't he like just a British girl? It's only just get the non-whites in there. And she puts in the Patil twins, the Indian Hindus, and these are the girls that Harry and Ron go to the Yule Ball with. Angelina Johnson, a white name, is a black girl who goes with Fred to the Yule Ball, and she's the Quidditch captain. Dean Thomas is black, who goes out with Ginny in the 6th book. None of these mixed-race couples actually work out in the series. Cedric, who was Cho's boyfriend, dies at the end of the 4th. Harry and Cho don't work out in the 5th. Ginny and Dean break up in the 6th, and Fred dies in the 7th. In this series, there is no difference at all between the white and non-white characters. No mention of any cultural or religious differences. So that begs the question, why were they included in the story at all? Why does she have to make them non-white? Clearly, it's just because of diversity. Just so she can feel good. Just to virtue signal. I'm not racist, I'm not xenophobic, Britain is for everyone. A typical progressive. Like, can we please just have a British story? Harry Potter, as a series, feels very British. For example, the formality that exists between the professors and pupils, it's not the case in North America. And she puts in British slang sometimes, like cheers, pudding, take the Mickey out of, and Tonks says watcher, which I think is a North Yorkshire thing, and the very fact that Hogwarts is a boarding school. Like, why does she even put non-British elements into a British story? Non-British people. It's so conspicuous because it doesn't fit. It doesn't belong. Let's keep going. Harry Potter really is also about honoring thy mother and thy father. Dumbledore makes it clear for Harry at the end of the 6th book that Harry has a choice. The prophecy says that one will try and kill the other, Harry and Voldemort, but Dumbledore tells Harry that he is free to go on with his life. It is Voldemort who chose Harry as a baby and marked him, and he will not rest until Harry is dead. But Harry, he can run or hide under his cloak like Ignatius Peveril, or he can do something else with his life. But Harry thinks of his mother and father, and what they sacrificed to protect him. He thinks of Neville's parents and Sirius, and he decides that he will fight Voldemort. It is him honoring his parents, thinking of what they did for him, that he wants revenge for them. That is what galvanizes his will to fight. This would be unheard of today. That loyalty to your parents. That respect for your parents. Today's late teenagers come home from college with cropped blue and pink hair and yell at their parents for being racist colonizers who took Native Americans' land. And they end up as socialist SJWs. What do they care about their parents' sacrifice? Yes, your parents probably didn't die for you, but they had to defer gratification quite a bit. To work, to buy some kind of nice place to live in. Maybe not really wealthy, but you'll have a roof over your head. You'll have clothing. They'll feed you. They'll pay for your education. Now, what do today's youth care about their parents' sacrifice? What do they care about the people who came before them? What do they care about the future? If you don't respect what someone else gave to you, how can you then wish to respect what you are going to give to somebody else? How are you going to care about that process of passing something on? I think you can take nationalism from this idea too. Honoring the country, honoring the founders' wishes of what they envisioned the country to be like for all time, the freedoms and values that were handed to you, protecting it and cherishing it, and preserving and taking care of it to pass on to others. That is your duty because that is what was done for you. The Order of the Phoenix fights because they don't want Voldemort to change society in such a disastrous way, in his image. They don't want to follow him. He's wrong. He's a killer. They want to stop his reign of murder and terror. Harry fights for his parents' memory. He fights for their sacrifice. And he sacrifices himself at the end like his mother, which keeps all the witches and wizards in the battle who are fighting Voldemort under the magical protection that comes with the self-sacrifice, like what his mother did for him. The Order fights to preserve goodness and virtue, simply because it is right. Voldemort is dangerous. And it's the decent thing to do. Like Aberforth says in the 7th book, just give up. It's over. Voldemort's already won. And Harry says, no, I can't. Dumbledore gave me a job to do. What? You're 17, you're just a kid. Well, I've got to do it. I've got to do it, says Harry. It's right. If everyone acted like Aberforth, they would lose their society. That's what happens. When you let in those Muslims, those breeding conquerors, you lose your society. And I'm not talking about one or two. I'm not talking about secular people or liberal people. I'm talking about people who come from a backwards culture. People who are very religious. The 5th book shows how important the first 2 amendments are. Umbridge doesn't let Harry tell the truth, and she doesn't let students use defensive spells in defense against the dark arts. Why Jo Rowling is betraying these morals of her series simply for virtue signaling points from delusional mental patients, progressives, I don't know.